I spent an unforgettable night with Grat late into the night. But the next morning, I paraded through the pack house like a zombie. A start I never saw coming. Chapter 26. It was late when I went to sleep after the night with Grant. My body was exhausted but my brain buzzed with excitement. I couldn't get over that one amazing night where everything seemed to work out. Although waking up the next morning, only capturing a couple hours sleep, I felt like a zombie parading through the pack house. When arriving in the dining room, in a t-shirt and track pants, what I wore to bed, Abby was the first to spot something was off. I go join their table. With Abby, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Sean and Lily, sliding out the chair and sitting with my eyes feeling heavy. You okay, Brooke? Annie asks as she kindly pours me a glass of orange juice from a pitcher on the table. You look hungover. Abby comments and I give her a scowl before drinking my juice. The coldness wakes me up as it washes down my throat. I am not in a cheery mood this morning, and I don't feel like Abby's jokes. I'm not, just really tired. I state simply. Is it because you were out with Grant last night? Abby asks casually, but her face has a teasing note to it that makes me glower at her. What? Annie could have practically screamed, which causes me to jump. But in my tired and irritated state my attention goes back to Abby. How do you know where I was last night? I question. I was patrol duty last night. Might have caught a glimpse of you two in the forest together. She replies, how could have I not seen a white wolf in the dark? You would have stood out like a sore thumb. I observe. You will be surprised how well I can hide in the forest, even though I have such luscious white fur soft as snow. Abby exaggerates dramatically even though it's a bitch to clean. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Language. Annie scolds as she nods her head to a little 3-year-old Lily, who is not paying attention as she is coloring in. Abby puts her hands up in surrender and carries on eating her breakfast. Annie's gaze comes to me, and I find myself sinking into my seat. She smiles. So, how was it with Grant last night? Sean beside her coughs on his toast, as if he was thinking the obvious thought of what that question could mean. My cheeks go red. Nothing of that nature. I announce first, which only causes Annie and Abby to smirk in amusement. He took me to a beautiful place in the forest. We talked. We laughed. He took me back. You know, the usual. Although nothing about last night was the usual. But I am not going to mention that to the sisters who seem way too interested in my love life at the moment. As if remembering the night causes it. I feel the baby move around and I place a hand on my stomach. A small smile makes it onto my lips. By that face I don't think it was an ordinary first date. Annie notes as she watches me with knowing eyes. I sigh with content as I playfully roll my eyes. Why are you so interested on this topic? May I ask? Since we have been here, which has been a long while, Grant has never, well not that we know of, taken as much interest in someone as he has for you. She explains and I find myself shaking my head. The only reason he did take an interest in me was because of the baby in my stomach. But Annie shakes her head in protest. That might have brought you together. But times have changed, Brooke. He didn't have to ask you out on a date, just because you're having a baby together. I open my mouth to object, but find nothing to indicate her statement as wrong. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Grant didn't need to ask me out, or kiss me, or was it because he felt obliged to? And as usual, I am overthinking things. Daddy. Lily's voice breaks the silence. Yes, sweetheart. Sean asks, tilting his head down closer to her level, as she remains coloring. If Brooke has a baby in her stomach, how did it get there? It's an odd and innocent question, but the table goes quiet and it seems me and Abby are the ones trying to hold in our laughter. Lily is quite observant for her age. Sean's head turns to his wife's. She's your daughter. Annie glares at her husband, and I decide then not to get dragged into the conversation, so I excuse myself to get breakfast from Martha. The day went by quickly as I went to check in with Drive. Norton. Not for an appointment but just to ask a few questions after what happened last night. He says it's called the quickening, when the baby starts to move around. He was very reassuring that everything was normal, and after that I spent the rest of my day with the pack. It was a rainy day and people decided to have a movie day. Somehow a Star Wars marathon was decided, which I didn't mind. But everyone was annoyed when there was no popcorn because Martha had the rule of no junking food. However, she did make up for that minor dilemma of movie-watching tradition with homemade brownies and cookies. However, my lack of sleep caught up to me about mid-second movie and I went up to my room for a nap. It was around 5 o'clock in the afternoon when I dozed off. When I woke up I felt someone running their fingers through my hair. I lay there for longer than I needed to, enjoying the feeling of my hair being played with. When I did finally open my eyes I was surprised to see my room all dark as if it was nighttime. And it took me a moment to realize who the person was from the lack of light. Grant. I whisper, slowly starting to sit up against the headboard. Sadly Grant's hand pulls away from my hair. What's the time? 10:30. He informs me and I groan. I didn't want to be asleep that long. I am afraid now my sleep patterns are going to be all wrong. What time did you doze off? 5, I think. I rub my eyes before looking over to Grant. It was a nice surprise for you to be here when I woke up. Grant chuckles. Well, I hadn't seen you all day. Although I wasn't expecting you to still be fast asleep when Abby told me you were in your room. You haven't been waiting long, have you? I question, slightly guilty. Half an hour, he states, and I bite my lip. You were just watching me sleep. A little awkward by the situation. That's not creepy, is it? Just a little. I laugh and he laughs along with me. When it starts to die down, an embarrassing rumble comes from my stomach. Grant continues laughing. I regret to inform you that Martha has officially closed the kitchen. He says I'm being a pregnant woman now. That's the last thing I wanted to hear. But I think I have leftovers in my apartment upstairs if you want to come up. Surprised you would ask me up is overruled in this instant by my hunger. But I am still unsure. Sure. I mean if it's not any trouble. Don't be stupid, Brooke. He teases, sitting up from the bed. He offers his hand to me. Come. And with a smile I accept his help. And he doesn't let go of my hand as we walk up the couple flights of stairs to the top floor. Last time I was there I was caught eavesdropping beside his office. When we arrive we walk past the office door and Grant gets his keys out and unlocks the door to his apartment. Once walking in I am taken back by it. I look to my left to see a sleek kitchen with a huge countertop and a stove. A fridge and a pantry to accompany. There is also a small dining table, and to the right of that is the lounge area, and the sofas look really comfortable as they face a flat screen tea. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My eyes are wandering to the small hallway in front, but my attention goes back to Grant. He is rummaging through the fridge. I join him in the kitchen. Can I ask you something? I inquire, sitting on one of the stools under the counter. I hear a muffled yes from the fridge. Why do you and some other people have apartments, when people like myself have single rooms? Jealous, are we? Grant jerks as he finally closes the fridge door, holding to containers now. I reply back to quickly. He just raises his eyebrows at me. Maybe just a little. He chuckles with a sigh. Long story short, we were planning on expanding, but we had money problems. When I found this place several years ago, it was already like this. More and more people have been joining, and there is not enough room in the pack house for everyone to have their own complex like this. Fair enough, I think, but it doesn't erase the envy of not having to walk down for flights of stairs when I feel hungry. So do you want chicken stir-fry or spaghetti meatballs? Grant breaks me out of my thoughts. I look at the containers in his hand. Stir-fry sounds good. I reply and he gets to work warming them up in the microwave. As we wait he turns back to me, leaning against the cupboard. So how was your day? I went to see Drive. Norton about last night. I start off and I notice Grant's shoulders go tense. And he asks. I can't help but suppress a smile on Grant's concern. Everything is going smoothly. Nothing to worry about. When it seems Grant relaxes, the microwave timer goes off and he bends down to take out the container. Were you part of the Star Wars marathon that happened today? Not really. Got to about the halfway mark of the second one before I was too tired. I explain. Well, they're still going downstairs. They're not even close to finishing. Grant states. I chuckle. Everyone seemed very enthusiastic to go all the way to the end. I wonder who is still standing. Grant pulls out some bowls from beside the sink and places my stir fry into it. He opens a random cupboard to get me a knife and fork, placing them on the rim of the bowl before sliding it to me. And Grant smiles before heating up his spaghetti. I'm sure there should be a movie on or something on the tea. He offers. Okay. Anything but Star Wars. I comment, hopping off the stool, meal in hand and heading over to the lounge area. I plonk down on the black sofa directly facing the tea. Grant's apartment is so organized you don't have to shove your hands down the side of the sofa cushions to find the tea. Note. They sit neatly, parallel to each other on a small coffee table. Kicking one up, I start channel surfing. When Grant does join me, I decided on a Disney movie. Although it's forgotten because Grant and I end up talking over our meals. And when we are finished, I find myself snuggling up to Grant, our legs tangled along the sofa and my head resting against his chest. Listening to his steady, calming heartbeat is what makes me fall asleep. Chapter 27. Someone is clearing their throat when my eyes flicker open. But I am not in my bedroom, and the body underneath me shifts, which startles me, and I would have fallen off if the arm around my waist hadn't have tightened. You to look comfortable. I lift my head up to see Rain. I watching Grant, and our sleepy state entangled on the sofa. In my slight embarrassment of the situation, I start to fumble off of Grant, but he is not letting go. If anything, he is holding me tighter. What do you want, Raina? He says gruffly, his morning voice sounding sexy to my ears. And the hormones in my body have woken for today as well. You had scheduled an important pack meeting about an hour ago. Although nothing happened because the alpha wasn't there, she says back. A bite to her words. I can feel Grant's body tense under mine. We had certainly slept in later than expected. On the sofa. All rescheduled for this afternoon. Grant grunts. Obviously not that happy. Raina sighs. Her attention then turns to me. I'll see you around, Brooke. She winks my way and my cheeks turn red. Yep. I say rather awkwardly. She smiles an knowing smile before she walks away out of sight. We hear the door close and silence falls in the room. I turn my head on Grant's chest upwards to look at his face. When doing so, a smile is on his lips. His hair is all disheveled. Good morning. I find a yawn escaping me. Good morning to you. You sleep all right? Running his hand up and down my back. That doesn't help me wake up, but want to fall right back to sleep. I nod my head. One of the best sleeps I have had in ages. I comment, and the smile that appears on Grant's face means that was the right answer. I decide to start shuffling off the sofa. Even if Grant complains. Once standing, I stretch. Careful with my injured shoulder. The sofa isn't the best for lumbar support. Peering back down at Grant, I can see his lack of interest in moving. Come on, sleepyhead. Time to get up. He groans in protest. Give me a minute. I sigh before walking over to his kitchen area. I decide to check the fridge first. When opening it, all it contains is some orange juice, milk and some moldy lemons. Remind me, Grant, why is it you need a kitchen if you do not use it? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. But I do use it. On special occasions, he states, and I close the fridge door, turning around to Grant getting up from the sofa. Right. I drag out. Now opening and closing empty cupboards bare of food. I think you have grown too attached to Martha's cooking to be bothered to cook for yourself. There is a pause before I say guilty. He says, and I laugh. But you must admit nothing does beat her cooking. I playfully roll my eyes. Sure. I'm hungry. Hopefully Martha is still making breakfast, but it might be more of a brunch by now. Probably. I'll meet you down there. I'll just get changed before heading down. Me too. I'll see you there. After a quick change, and pampering since my hair and face looked haggard, I made it downstairs to the dining room. I look for Grant and find him sitting this morning with Annie, Sean, Abby and Lily. And I am not surprised to see Grant glowering at Abby as usual, while Abby is the one keeping him, annoyed, as he likes to put it. As I approach, the table goes quiet, and while I sit down on the empty chair beside Grant, all eyes watch me. Good morning. There's a couple good mornings back, and the awkward tension is so thick it could be cut with a knife. When turning my head to Abby, she smiles brightly, although I know by that cheeky grin I am in trouble. Good morning, More like afternoon, she says with a twinkle in her eye. Where were you two sleepy heads this morning? Abby tilts her head back and pretends to think. Let's see. When I knocked on your door this morning, Brooke, I found your bedroom empty, and Grant seemed to have slept in and missed an important meeting. Coincidence? Even though my cheeks were burning up so bad you could fry an egg on them, I stupidly still tried to play coy. I don't know what you're getting at, Abby. Oh, you know me. Putting things together. Abby chirps and my eyes glare at her. If you must know, Abby. Grant speaks up, a calmness in his words. I invited Brooke up for a meal last night at my apartment. We might have fallen asleep on the sofas watching a movie. Does that put things together? Abby looks about ready to smash the glass in her hand, but she calms and sits back in her seat. How you ruin my fun. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She scoffed. Always a pleasure. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Grant smiles mockingly, and it takes me a lot not to laugh at the two children I am sitting between. Someone clearing their throat across from me draws my attention back to the table. I find it to be Annie. Well, since that's cleared up, and out in the open. Annie winks and I can't help but roll my eyes. You two must be excited for tomorrow. What's tomorrow? Grant asks, looking to me, about to ask the same question. It takes me several seconds to remember what Annie is referring to. I literally slap my forehead. 20-week ultrasound. Gosh, why can't I remember anything? I complain and Annie chuckles while I turn back to a confused Grant. Sorry, I was supposed to ask you about coming, I just kept forgetting. I got that. Grant chuckles, and I would be happy to come. His hand comes to rest on my thigh. The gesture alone makes my heart beat faster. Well, after you guys find out the sex, well, that's if you want to, you can go shopping. Annie says excitedly. Shopping. Grant and I question at the same time. We look at each other before back to Annie. She seems confused, and her excited state fades slightly. Yeah. Well, if you find out the sex, you can buy clothes easier instead of everything being neutral. Then there is the baby's room. You'll have to find a changing table. Oh, the crib. Blankets for the winter. Hats for the summer. Somehow Annie keeps going, which is another reason my mind is racing with this information. And the only word that keeps repeating itself in my head is, shit. What am I saying? I am getting ahead of myself. Annie pauses, waving it off. Have you thought about the birth? Brooke, there's a lot to consider, since you're putting your body through a lot, Annie. Sean says rather sternly, stopping her mid-sentence. I think you better stop for a second. No, Abby starts laughing. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Continue. Seeing their freaked out faces has just made my day. Annie seems to realize she had been going on and her face sinks. Oh, sorry, it's fine. I force a smile that probably makes me look crazy mad. I am getting up from my seat. I'm not that hungry. I think I will go on a walk instead. And I don't stop until I make it out of the front door of the pack house. I stop a few steps away from the front porch. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. What was I thinking? Well, obviously I wasn't, because from what Annie had just said, there's a lot to think about. I'm having a baby. That was simple enough to get my head around, but I had been so stupid to forget about all that it entails. Brooke. My head whips to my name being called by Grant. He steps down the porch steps to me. When seeing my state, he sighs. You're freaking out. What? I'm not freaking out, I say as I nervously chuckle, making me sound even crazier. Say that while looking me in the eye. I let out as much built-up tension with a sigh and bite my lip. Turning my head to Grant, I was uncertain as to why he seemed calmer. Then me. How come you're not freaking out? Honestly, I am. But it's not like we're alone in this. I finally stand still. How could I be so clueless? You're not, Brooke, he says, coming to stand directly in front of me. We weren't ready for all this. We're not prepared, and it seems we have very little knowledge of taking care of a baby, let alone raising one. Is this supposed to make me feel any better? I cut in and Grant huffs. You didn't let me finish. He complains. We have support here. You have Annie for starters. Martha. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Lilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Rania. We have a whole house behind us full of people that can teach us and help us. Somehow my nerves slow down and I nod, taking away the remaining space between us. Sometimes I just need a hug. When Grant's arms wrap around my waist, bringing me closer, I forgot for a second what I was even freaking out about to begin with. And guess who else you have? He whisper me. I hold him even tighter in that moment, closing my eyes to savor his warmth. Moments like this I wish lasted forever. Damn it. I was kind of hoping you weren't on that list. Grant's reply to my comment is by giving me a smack on my butt. I cry out in surprise, pulling away with a pout. He puts his hands up in surrender. Sorry, I forgot that night in New York you didn't like spanking. My mouth drops open as red washes on my cheeks, but I manage a pretty deftly glare his way. Or did you? I smack him on the arm and he laughs, turning around and starting to head back up the porch. But my thoughts wander back to New York and that night. What I was really doing. My head turns down to the dirt road, leading out of the forest, out of the territory and back to the city, where I had left my brother in the hands of S. Brooke. My head turns back to a puzzled Grant. You're not freaking out again, are you? I force a light laugh out, shaking my head. No, just thinking. And with that I follow him, taking his hand as he leads me back into the pack house. Guilt washes over me, and I risk drowning in it soon. Chapter 28. Well, I'd like it to be a surprise, I state, as we are waiting by drive. Norton's office. Grant and I are here for the 20-week ultrasound. And today, if wanted, we could find out the sex of the baby, boy or girl. I think it would be fun to know. Grant persuades and I roll my eyes. The only reason you want to know is because you hate surprises, I comment, and I look through the corner of my eye to see Grant sulking. Although I don't think he's willing to let this go. I think it would be more fun it is a surprise. Maybe for you. But I think Brooke, he pauses, giving me a sly look. You doing this on purpose? In mock horror. I gasp. What? You know my hatred of surprises and guessing games. You just doing this to tease me? I bite my lip as I smile. That's why it would be more fun. He gives me an annoyed look, but can't hide the amusement on his face by the expression. And before any more can be said, the door to drive Norton's office pops open. His head peers around the corner. It's the happy couple. Come on in, he says, leaving his door open. After looking at Grant, we get up and head on in. How did you know? We are, I stammer but drive. Norton cuts in. In a pack like this, news spreads quicker than wildfire, especially when it's about our alpha, he whispers, looking at Grant, who is defiantly not entertained by that statement. Subsiding a laugh, Drive Norton directs me to sit on the padded bed on the back of his office. He does the routine check of my blood pressure and weight while Grant sits on the seat beside the bed. Having to stand on a pair of scales is the most awful thing, knowing my weight is only going to increase. Everything looks good so far. How's your shoulder healing? I look down and across to my shoulder. giving it a little rub. Fine. It hasn't given me much problems. Just a little sore when I reach for something. That's fair enough. I will give you some small exercises to do just to get your arm muscles used to the movement again. He says and I nod in thanks. Now let's see how the baby is growing. I'll just get you to lie down. I do so as drive. Norton goes to get the ultrasound machine again. His office being small, I understand him not wanting it to be in here 24/7. Once lying on the padded bed, I look to my left to see Grant watching me. You're smiling, I state, which makes him chuckle. You'll be pleased to know I am capable of such a thing. He smirks and I let out a laugh. Sorry, but last time I had to force that usual frown upside down. I remark, remembering my failed attempt at using my fingers to stretch his lips up into a smile. You were carrying so much tension between your thick eyebrows, I am surprised your skull didn't crack in half. Hang on, Grant intervenes, holding up his hand, thick eyebrows. I was told they were my best feature. Running his fingers across both. Well, those who like your hairy caterpillars are allowed to. I joke, looking to Grant's annoyed face, and I chuckle. I think teasing you is my new favorite thing to do with you. After a sec, and Grant smiles, reaching out and taking my hand. He kisses the back of it, letting his lips linger, which causes a few pleasant shivers to run up my spine. Are you sure it's your favorite thing to do with me? My eyes gleam at him as he wears his playful smirk. This light-hearted, less stern side of Grant I can get used to. The moment ends though when drive. Norton comes busting back into the office, wheeling in the ultrasound machine. I roll up my shirt to my dome, also known as my belly. 5 months and I already feel massive. The ultrasound gets underway and seeing the baby, although in my stomach, never gets old. The baby's arms and legs seem to grow bigger and things seem more refined and detailed. And then the dreaded question is asked. Would you like to know the gender? No, my answer yes. Grant's answer. I let out a built-up sigh. Grant, please. Come on. Then putting on what I hoped was a convincing smile. You can conquer your fears. It was the wrong thing to say from Grant's flat expression in return. Brooke, I would really like to know the gender. My stepmother always said I was as stubborn as an ox getting his ass whipped. And with my mood swings, this ox isn't budging. I'm the one carrying the baby, and I think it's fair if I don't want to know if in my stomach I am carrying a boy or girl. Our baby Brooke. I have just as much right as you to know. Grant argues back and it becomes an intense stare-off drive. Norton clearing his throat makes me realize we aren't alone. I can see you to have reached an impasse. How about I tell Grant the gender? And Brooke, you don't have to know. A wise idea. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I agree. Then turning my attention to Grant. But you better not spill. I mean it. He smiles triumphantly. Believe me, I am good. Waiting outside drive. Norton's office for Grant took a little longer than expected, but when he comes out the smile he always makes me overly curious. So, I ask, and he gives me a look. Do you know? He chuckles yes. I find myself biting my lip, and by that gesture Grant seems to be able to read my mind. Do you want to know? I scrunch up my face in annoyance. I want to stand my ground, but sometimes curiosity gets the better of me. I was never known to be a patient person. Grant says, a cheek innes to his words. Since you were so willing not to allow me to know the gender and make me suffer for the next few months, I can only do what you intended for me. My mouth drops open, a protest ready to come out, but it is interrupted by Grant's laugh. It sounded rather evil in my ears. Come, let's go get lunch. With that said, he loops an arm around my waist, and slight surprises passes through me when his hand slides down to my stomach, giving it a few soothing rubs. And I knew then, boy or girl. Grant was happy. Chapter 29. The weather is starting to cool to lower temperatures, and the wind is becoming crisper by the days. Winter is dawning on us, but before it is too cold to go out, the pack is holding a bonfire event outside. Rugged up in a jumper and a jacket, I sit upon a lawn chair enjoying the ending of the day. Going in tonight. It was nice being surrounded by people I can call friends. It helps me forget about all the terrible things that have happened and are still happening in my life. I can't wait to see the baby. For real, I mean. Raina says as she passes back the ultrasound photo I had bought to show her and pestering Annie. Me too, I say, patting my enlarged stomach before giving a soothing rub. My baby has decided to try and gain my attention by kicking me ever so often most recently. Of course I don't mind, well, at least when I am trying to fall asleep, but in a way I feel a little better knowing my little munkin is doing all right in there. So Abby drags out, taking a sip of her beer. Do you know the gender yet? I shake my head. No, but Grant does. They give me a confused look and I elaborate. He wanted to know. I didn't. Speak of the devil. Abby points to her right and I follow her finger to Grant's approaching figure. He smiles when seeing me, dropping down on the free seat beside mine. We heard you know the gender of the baby, Abby states boldly. And Grant looks to me and I shrug. That I do. He says as if it was a simple fact. He's gone back to tough emotionals as alpha. Not the one that teases me on my evolving waddle walk from my growing belly. I did slap him hard, on the shoulder for that one. Do you mind telling us? Raina asks him quicker than anything. I slap my hands over my ears. Scared Grant would answer. It's only a few seconds later I feel warm hands pry my hands away. And I hear the soft chuckling of Grant. I turn to him. I wasn't going to say anything. If I can't tell you, I won't tell anyone. Tu es agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Abby complains, her face turning sour. I won't tell Brooke. Pinky swear. Raina laughs at Abby's attempt. You won't get anything out of him. He's been that way since he was a child. Our parents used to get so mad at him. Right, Grant? It becomes so obvious in that moment that Grant went to stern to beyond tense at the mention of his parents. His lips are so thin when he answers. Right. He gets out gruffly. Raina continues. I remember one time Grant had gotten a ton load of candy one Halloween and he was determined not to share it, so he hid it. He wouldn't tell anyone, not even Mom or Dad. The only way we found out in the end is when a nest of ants were crawling out under a loose floorboard in his bedroom. Mom was so mad she had to get. Raina Grant grits out. His tone meant for no question. I was quite enjoying the little anecdote about his childhood, but clearing he wasn't. Raina's happy reminiscing spirit is crushed by Grant, as anger overtakes the evident sadness in her eyes. What? I can't even talk about them now. Drop it. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. But Raina seems to have no intention to do so. No, she hisses. They were our parents. What is wrong with talking about them? You wouldn't understand. He bites back, sharpness to his words. But then his words become a lost whisper. You weren't there that day. Raina's orphans, but the rage comes back quicker than it left. No, I wasn't, because it was your bright idea to ship me off to England. She abruptly gets up from her chair, her voice cracking. I didn't even get to say goodbye. With that she storms away. The argument of brother and sister had captured the whole attention of the pack as it becomes silent. In my utter puzzlement of what happened, it takes me a moment to regain my thoughts and turn to Grant. His hands are holding onto his armrest so tightly the metal is starting to bend at the sheer force of his strength. Grant, I whisper in a helpless attempt to capture his attention. He relaxes only a fraction, and I am relieved when I hear people going back to their own conversations. If you want to talk. I jump when he harshly cuts, and I think I just made it pretty damn clear that I don't want to talk about it. Emotions start to swirl, and a growing lump forms on the back of my throat. I understand how you feel, but you shouldn't lash out. How could you possibly know how I feel? From me not actually dropping the subject matter, like I wish I had. But that statement alone makes me angry. I can see that Grant is hurt, and we clearly haven't told each other everything about ourselves, and he couldn't have known. But it still makes my blood boil. You're not the only one sitting here who has lost their parents. I spit out, and decide the enjoyable bonfire has turned an ugly head as I manage to get up from my seat. which took embarrassingly longer than usual. I walk away, not turning back as I make my way back to the pack house for a hot bath to calm me down and soak away my problems. Only if for an hour or two. I decided on a pair of comfortable FLA pajamas with hearts for bed. Even if the art wasn't very flattering for my new body shape I'm getting used to. Just about to hop into bed a little past 10. A knock on my door makes me groan. I walk over to my door, not knowing whom to expect after the eventful evening. In the dark hallway outside stands Grant, rubbing his palms. His nervous gesture. I have mixed emotions about him being here. Angry yet relieved. "Can I come in?" he asks, and I just nod, walking back into the room as he does also, shutting the door behind him. "Sorry, I know it's late." He apologizes. I shrug, before saying, "Grant, I'm sorry about before." "Don't be," Grant states, and I go sit on the end of my bed. I tap my hand on the blanket beside me and Grant comes to join me. There is some following silence before Grant speaks up. "I thought your mother is still alive. You said you tried to call her. She's my stepmom. I love her all the same, but my real mother died when I was a baby." I explain. For some reason, it's never been that hard to talk about my deceased mother. I guess it is from the fact I never knew her. How could I miss someone I never met? But I feel awful thinking that way. "Your father?" Grant asks the harder question for me. "He died of an illness about a year ago." I inform Grant, and I know that whole statement is a passageway into telling him the truth about myself and my involvement that night in S. "Oh," I try and starty. "Unbrooke, you don't have to say anymore." Grant stops me and I shake my head. No, I try and keep going, but Grant stops me again. "You're tired, and that's the last thing I want you to have to talk about if you don't want to." The way he puts it makes me think for a second he understands. But the only thing he understands is the pain of losing a loved one. "What about your parents?" I ask, and Grant becomes tense again. But I push on. "It's obviously troubling you. A long time ago, my parents asked me to do something," Grant states, his eyes focused straight ahead, looking at the wall. "I didn't deliver, so they died." The words leave a bitter taste in the air, and I don't press Grant for any more. He blames himself. Even if it's his fault, no one should have to carry that burden. Grant is too good, too kind in my eyes for that to be true. But when he is ready, I hope he will tell me. I rub my hand along his arm, to hopefully comfort him, and when he leans into my touch, I go further up over his bicep, gliding my hand over the back of his neck until I softly run my fingers through his hair. A small groan seems to escape Grant as his hand comes to rest on my thigh, softly rubbing it as he leans closer to me. He rests his forehead on mine before locking our lips. The kiss becomes deeper as I had already had my fingers threaded through his dark hair, adding my other hand to bring him closer. His hands are exploring my waist, and in that moment, I realize that pregnancy can make you incredibly sad one second to uncontrollably horny the next. I was far past aroused when his lips moved against my cheeks to my neck, nibbling as he went. A playful nip of my earlobe turned out to be my breaking point. I was tugging at his shirt as he pulled back, our breaths already labored. "Is it safe?" He looks down to my pregnant stomach. I can't help the little smile on my lips. "Yes." I think that was the last coherent word said that night, as I violently ripped Grant's shirt off, when he patiently unbuttoned my pajamas top. We now know who is the patient one in the relationship. But after that, Grant wasted no second into making me feel amazing. I knew, though, that I was digging a deeper hole for myself when the truth came out. But with Grant, all I wanted was to be with him in every way possible. I never wanted the night to end. Chapter 30. I woke up tangled in sheets, as well as tangled up in the arms and legs of a sleeping Grant. A little confused at first as to why my flannel pajamas were on the floor and how I was now wearing a baggy shirt and underwear. It only took me a moment to remember why. I wear a cheesy grin as I turn my head back to see Grant's head resting between my neck and shoulder. I feel his bare chest rest against my back, his arms collided around my waist. One hand rests upon my swollen stomach. I slide my hand to rest on top of his. I feel his body shift behind me and hear a little groan. Grant's awake. I am aware of him taking in his surroundings, but seconds later he cuddles up closer to me and holds me tighter as if ready to fall asleep again. You really aren't a morning person, are you? I tease and I feel the shake of his head. I laugh as I finally manage to turn over onto my back. With many complaints from Grant, as he had adhered apparently to a comfortable position, he remains laying on his side. As I sit up against the headboard, he rests his head on his elbow as he looks up to me. Our eyes lock as I smile at him, the night before replying in my mind. But it stops when I feel a little kick from inside my stomach. Someone wants some attention. I stroke my belly, feeling the popping popcorn sensation, which is my little monkkin probably waking up to. I guess he or she isn't a morning person either. Someone else awake. Grant observes by my actions. I smile his way. He reaches his hand out to join mine on my stomach. I direct it to where the little person is kicking, and when it happens I watch as Grant's eyes light up. Did you feel him? I put emphasis on the him, intending to trick Grant to revealing the gender, but I knew he was too clever for that. He seems like he is about to answer, but instead he closes his mouth and gives me a knowing look. I know what you're up to. If you want to know so bad, you can go down and ask Drive. Not in yourself. I don't want to do that though, I say, and he furrows his eyebrows. Then why ask me the gender? I pull on a mischievous smile. I don't really want to know, but trying to get it out of you is a much more fun game to play. Grant just chuckles. Why do you like to tease me so much? Because you're so easy to tease, I state with a giggle, and Grant pouts at me before scotching closer to me, his hand not leaving my stomach. He places his lips close to my belly before whispering, "Your mother isn't very nice to me." Hey, that's not fair. I gently try and move his mouth away from my stomach. I'm only telling the truth, Grant says innocently, and I scoff at him. What? You have plenty of chances to talk to the baby. I scowl at him. Well, I do. But I am afraid I am not close enough for her. I watch Grant's reaction to see what he does when I say, but all I get is a flat look. So I continue. To be able to hear. I don't bend that way. Grant slides at the headboard to whisper in my ear. Oh, I remember you bending all sorts of ways last night. I gasp and a blush blares on my cheeks as Grant chuckles at my reaction. He slithers back down close to my stomach. We sit there in silence for a few minutes. Grant says, and I tilt my head in question. What's weird? I ask as he continues to caress my stomach, not daring to pull away. I told you, well, try to explain, the connection shadow werewolves have. It's sort of like a sixth sense. Yeah. I go through the conversation Grant and I had on our car journey home from one of the many bizarre trips from the mall. I never really understood though. The best way to put it is being able to sense one another's emotions. As we get more experienced with it, we can form words or phrase as a way of communication. I nod along. It's probably more complicated then, but I have a better understanding of it. But then it hits me about what Grant is intending. Can you sense what the baby is feeling? He nods. A tentative smile is on his lips. Yes. I become nervous as I wait and Grant smiles before laughing, giving my stomach, our child, a longing kiss. He pulls away. Our baby, Brooke, is quite happy. My smile felt so big. It was painful. It's been a week since Grant and I shared our second night together. After that, things start to feel almost normal. It was as if we were a real couple, choosing whose place to stay in for the night. I even convinced Martha to let me help myself to some egg so I can make breakfast in the morning when staying at Grant's place. Although the day came when we had organized a day trip to the mall and our first step into preparing for the baby, Annie has decided to join us, leaving Lily with Sean to have a father-daughter day. Abby and Raina also decided to tag along, but I found out later that they were forced to come because Grant wanted extra security. But I couldn't blame him. Every time I have gone to this mall, I end up getting attacked. So have you seen any cribs you like so far? Annie asks as we stand in the middle of Baby's Russ. There are like 50 different types, I exclaim, a little overwhelmed with the choice. Annie sighs. More like 20. She runs her hand over the rail of one made of dark rich wood. This one's nice. It's not that high so you can lean over it easier. Although when they get older they probably will be able to get out, which could be dangerous. Another thing that makes me stressed is all the little details, like the ones Annie has just shared. All have to be taken in consideration. I like this one. I hear Grant say from the other side of the crib display. He holds onto the trolley with the baby essential that Annie has talked us through. Bottles and bibs so far. And one thing I was quite embarrassed about was the breast milk pump. And it certainly didn't help when Abby decided to have some fun with it. Her and Raina were laughing at my uncomfortable scowls. Luckily Grant sensed my annoyance and made them go away. Walking over to Grant can see him stand beside a nice simple one. Painted white. I look to him and smile. Me too. I guess we are people who like simple things. Less can be more. Although Annie comes by checking over it before she gives us the okay. I will just go get a salesperson to help us, Annie says, as she walks away. I look to Grant. I can tell it's been a long day for the both of us. I really got to go to the bathroom, I say quite randomly, which makes Grant laugh. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. I'll just go get Annie to take care of Grant. You don't have to come, I say, rolling my eyes. Brooke, he protests, but I am shaking my head. I'll be 5 minutes tops. It's just outside and around the corner. I can tell he is still not okay with it. But he reluctantly nods his head. I head out of the shop back into the semi-crowded mall filled with shoppers. Walking to the food court, where the toilets are located, I feel the hair on the back of my neck stand up. From experience, this means I am overly paranoid, or someone is watching me. I try and act casual as I look around, darting my eyes to see familiar faces. But the feeling doesn't go away. Making it to the food court, I can see that it started getting late as the food stores are closing and barely anyone is sitting down. I walked off until I reach the hollow passageway to the toilets. It's quiet enough that I hear my own footsteps, although might not be only appear to be her decorating off the walls. But I am too late, as someone grabs my wrist, spinning me before I am pinned to the wall. I wince as my back crashes against it, but I recover quickly as my wrist is also restrained, and I meet the eyes of an all-too-familiar work colleague. Always so predictable. Brooke, he says with a cheeky smile. You too, Jeff. I smirk as I hold the gun he always kept hid and under his shirt, tucked into his jeans, to the side of his head. Chapter 31. It's like a Mexican standoff. Although I have the upper hand of the barrel of the gun, I got pointed at his head. Dead girls don't talk. Jeff grunts. The last time I saw him was in the middle of no man's land in Nevada, where I was working for an organization I thought was government-run, but I was really kidnapping the supernatural. I faked my death to get out. I'm obviously not dead. Making sure to show nothing. I have no idea why he is here. I can see his eyes peer downwards. And it doesn't take a genius to know he's looking at my pregnant stomach. He points to it. That's new. Obviously. I push the gun a little harder on the side of his head. You have about 2 minutes to explain what you are doing here before your worst nightmare appears. I know Grant will come investigate if I am not back in 5 minutes to the store. Jeff's eyes, putting his hands up in surrender. You know, when your mother told me you were alive, I couldn't. My mother? I ask, shocked, not understanding what she has to do with anything. He looks at my expression before furrowing his eyebrows. Yes, Vicky, your stepmother. Ring a bell. I know, you idiot. What does she have to do with this? Jeff's eyes focus on the gun still pointed at his head. Lower the gun, and I might be more willing to tell you. Putting the gun down, and I can see Jeff visibly relax. About a month ago your mum contacted me as a last resort to try and find you. Oh, it's all I can say. Guilt washes over me. I haven't told my stepmother where I am or even contacted her for her own protection. But she must be worried sick. But I guess it's not as serious as I thought. Jeff carries on, just as I remember him always doing. I give him a questionable look. He continues. I thought you might have been in danger, but I am guessing you are hiding from your mother with an out-of-wedlock pregnancy. I slap him on the shoulder. Hey, it It's a lot more complicated than that. I pinched the bridge of my nose. How did you find me anyways? To cut a long story short, your mother told me about you traveling to New York, as well as receiving a weird phone call from a blocked number a couple months back. He explained, and I'm guessing that was the call I used Abby's phone with, only to freak out and hang up after 10 seconds. So it took me a while to get the number. Tracking it down, I find out the phone was purchased from this very shopping center. I hacked into some security footage taken here. Found your face and been staking out you ever since. You were always good at tracking people, I comment, and you were always good at kicking their ass. He says, and that makes me laugh a little. It lightens the mood. By the way, can I have my gun back now? Not yet. I guess his story checks out, but I still don't entirely trust him. Jeff opens his mouth to say something else, but a growl echoing down the corridor stops him. I can't do anything as Grant is already storming towards us. His eyes transfixed on Jeff. His next target. It's one quick movement as Grant pins Jeff to the wall by his throat. Jeff automatically claws at the single hand pressing against his windpipe. I calmly take a breath and reach out to Grant. Let him go. Grant. Jeff looks to me with pleading eyes as Grant hasn't stopped. Grant. He slowly releases Jeff, turning to me, doing a sweep of my body to see if I am all right. So this is what you meant by my worst nightmare. Jeff huffs out, rubbing his throat. I smirk at him. Yes, Jeff, meet Grant. Your worst nightmare. I introduce, then I turn to Grant. Grant, meet Jeff. I'm an old co-worker. What is he doing here? Grant asks right after. Nice to meet you two. Jeff grunts and I give him a warning look. He always did have a bit of a smart mouth. I'd explain in a minute. I really have to go to the bathroom, I state in a sigh. I walk past Grant, giving him the gun still in my hand. Hold this. You haven't changed. Jeff chuckles as I walk past him. Neither have you. I laugh. I stop before I enter into the bathroom, giving him a small smile. It's good to see you. After I emptied my bladder, I, with not very much help from Jeff, explained the situation. I knew that Grant was him, and I don't really either, but it's obvious I can't just leave him here. On the car ride home, I explained my situation to him, skipping over how he was in the car with mainly werewolves. Besides Grant, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbe, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Annie and Raina had been giving him death glares. Since there was no more seats, he had to sit in the boot of the car. Luckily it was the Land Rover, so we didn't have to shove him in a cramped compartment. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He had to sit amongst the crib and changing table. I sat on the back seat, so I could talk to him. I craned my neck to see him playing a game on his phone, leaning on his backpack. Jeff, I ask, and his attention goes to me. If my mother hired you, I'm guessing Barry let you go. Barry was my old boss. He coordinated everyone in our unit. It was a question I had to ask because Barry would never let Jeff go out to do what he would call a charity project. They thought I was dead anyways. But by Jeff's reaction of the mention of Barry's name, his eyes widen. You don't know? Know what? I question, slumping back on his backpack. I suppose you wouldn't. He turns off his phone. The organization we worked for, or whoever we worked for, disbanded. What? What do you mean, whoever we work for? Jeff just rolled his eyes. He is clearly pissed at me. Brooke, don't play dumb with me. I know I am sitting in a car surrounded by werewolves. My eyes widen even more. How on earth do you know that? Abby chimes in. Yes, I would choose your answer very carefully, she warns. I give her an annoyed look as she sits beside me. I turn back to Jeff. You think that you dying in a car crash didn't make me suspicious? Jeff starts, starting the story I know that is coming. We were agents, Brooke. We were more likely to die on the field than by being stupid enough to run a red light. Yeah, I read the police report. Then why? Jeff, that's over to people out of work who could be quite lethal if they wanted be. Why did the organization disband? Trying to get my head around it. Before you died. He does quote marks with his fingers. I managed to track down what you were looking into. Past cases. The people we caught and shipped off. You were finding out where they were going. Once I did. Which was a massive surprise, by the way. I told Barry. I don't know what happened after I told him, because a week later, we received a notice that our unit, as well as the rest of the organization, was being shut down. We either join us, or we are our own. Oh, I see. By that tone I guess you know who I am talking about. Jeff says. Sympathy laced his words. And you went on your own. I state. A little scared of his answer now, yes. Which causes me to breathe a sigh of relief. I couldn't work with people like that. Neither could Barry. I don't blame him, he would have had to go from top dog to scrubbing the deck. Half went with us. Half went on our own. I find myself slumping back down on my seat. To think if I haven't left. Where would I be now? What would have I chosen? Brooke, Jeff says. His tone softening. I should also tell you that other organizations like us were to choose to. By this rate, Tess. Could have a couple thousand on their side across the U.S. I peer in front to see Grant looking at me through the review mirror. And by his expression I see concern, but not just for me. For everyone in his pack. Chapter 32. The rest of the car journey home was absolute silence. After Jeff had told us about Tess. Growing numbers, no one dared say anything. I don't think anyone could comprehend what will happen if Tess got near us. But when we finally arrived home at dark, everyone got off the car automatically, ready to head up to Grant's place tonight and have a hot shower. I was rather annoyed when Jeff pulled me aside. I need to talk to you for a second. Alone, he says quietly. I can see from the corner of my eye Grant watching us. Jeff, whatever you have to say to me can be said. It's about your brother, he whispers. And my heart does a painful leap as I look at him. I hope that the whisper was quiet enough that the werewolves surrounding us couldn't hear. I slowly nod. Just give me a minute, I say before walking over to Grant. I can see he knows something's off when I come to stand in front of him. I just need to talk to him for a few minutes. By myself. I don't trust him. Grant states honestly. I do. We will just talk by the car, I won't be that far away. I explain, but sigh when Grant still doesn't seem convinced. Before he can protest, I reach into his jacket pocket and haul out the gun I had taken from Jeff. I hold it up to him. Does this give you more reassurance? Grant rolls his eyes. He then leans down to whisper in my ear. Don't take too long. I would like to save some water by sharing a shower with you tonight. I chuckle at this. I promise not to be too long then. I smile before giving him a kiss on the cheek and walking back over to Jeff. Jeff looks to the gun. Really, Brooke? It's for Grant's comfort, not mine, I remark. We wait until everyone is in the pack house before I turn to Jeff. My heart pounding. What do you know about my brother? I was hoping you could answer that. He says, and I give him a confused look. Your mother didn't just hire me to find you. Of course she wouldn't. I think in my head. Have you found anything about where he is? When Jeff shakes his head, my heart sinks. No, I was hoping you could tell me where he is. You can tell me, can't you? I sigh, my fist clenching. Oh, what? Shaking his head. I don't understand if he's there. Is there a reason you went all weird when I talked about your brother? I feel that ought a familiar bubble appear, waiting to pop and spill out everything. I told you it's way more complicated than it seems. Jeff softens towards me. He puts a hand on my shoulder. Then uncomplicated it, Brooke. Whatever is eating you up alive, it's best to get it out. The bubble pops. The whole story comes spilling out of me. I barely have time to take a breath from the relief it's giving me for someone else to know. Even though it's so horrible. And when I am done, Jeff stands there, looking guard, smacked by the events that have caused me to be here today. And you haven't told them this. Grant this. Jeff verifies and I shamefully shake my head. Brooke, I know. I should have said something. But with Jordan's involvement as well as this Pax, I don't know who to blame for him getting caught up in it. Oh, but that's not the reason you haven't told them, Brooke, he says knowingly. You're afraid of what they are going to think. Especially Grant. I sigh a shaky breath. He hit the nail right on the head. Not knowing the true story was just an excuse. I was afraid of being rejected. Just like I had been my whole life at me old pack in California. That's why I kept it hidden. I won't say anything. It's your choice to tell them, he says calmly, and I nod in thanks. But my advice is to tell them soon, before it comes out in the wrong way. Thanks, Jeff, I say, giving him a small smile. Wait, you found me. What are you going to tell my mom? Jeff rubs the back of his head. Haven't thought of that. I'll just tell her I haven't found anything yet, wanting to protest that I don't. It's safer that way for to be out of the loop. And with all that sorted, we head back into the pack house. A slight weight has been lifted off my chest from telling someone my story, but guilt still weighs me down. I let Jeff have my room for the night, and after Grant's a nice steamy shower we went to bed. I rest my head on his shoulder, his arm looped around my waist. Some nights I can't get my body in a comfortable position to sleep, but tonight it was my mind that didn't let me rest. I have been told so much new information today that it seems like I have jumped in the air and the word has shifted under my feet. Ezra looks like it will be haunting me for the rest of my life, and I feel helpless. Into my condition, I can't rescue my brother, and I have another life to consider now before my own. Brooke, I hear Grant's soft whisper. Why aren't you asleep yet? I sigh. I hadn't noticed until now that I was shifting in my position, probably stopping Grant from sleeping. Just thinking about today, he asks, and I nod my head. I guess it was a lot to take in. I'm not really in a chatty mood. My thoughts are clouding everything at the moment. I feel bad when I can sense Grant agitation by my now's mood. What did you and Jeff talk about privately? And I go still. I knew deep down that he was going to ask about it. I had already thought I was going to tell him, but in my mental state I lie. Just about what to tell my mom, and just some stuff on some of my old co-workers, where they went, and he wanted to keep that private because... Grant asks, skeptical. If you don't trust him, he doesn't trust you. I remind him, and he chuckles softly. He drags out, and silence follows us as I stare up at the dark ceiling. When I feel Grant's body shifting under me, I look to him. Come, I want to show you something. At 1 o'clock in the morning, I complain as Grant helps me up. We walk out of his bedroom to the dark hallway. He flips the light on, and I blink, adjusting to the new brightness. We weren't going to sleep anytime soon, he mentions in a whisper. Raina is staying in a guest bedroom down the hall. Best not to wake her up. I sigh as he takes my hand, leading me to a door at the end of the hall. He opens the door, gesturing a hand for me to enter first. I do so as he walks in behind me, turning on the light switch for the room. And I am very confused when the space is bar. The room is empty. I turn to face our excited-looking Grant, my eyebrows furrowed in question. Am I missing something here? Grant laughs quietly and turns me back around by my shoulders. He squeezes them gently as I feel him lean closer, his lips close to my ear. This, he whispers, is our baby's room. My eyes brighten as I turn back to look at Grant, my smile matching his beaming one. I don't know what to say. Brooke, you don't have to say anything. Walking further in the space. We bought most of everything to put in here today. I thought it would be nice if you, me and the baby all lived in the same place. Kind of like a family. Family. How could that wall fill me so much joy but at the same time weigh me down with so much guilt? And from this battle I have in my brain, I don't know if the tears now leaking from my eyes are happy or sad. Grant, this amazing man, has done so much for me, and all I feel like I have done is screw him over. Why, you cry? He pouts, coming to stand in front of me. I just manage a weak laugh though and shake my head. I can help myself as I wrap my arms around him. It takes him by surprise as it takes him a moment to hug me back. It's just that I falter like an idiot again. It's perfect. Thank you.